I believe that something is harassing myself, my girlfriend, my house, my family, and very importantly my children. I do not think this is a passive being, and every time something new happens I believe more and more that this is possibly dangerous. To give some backstory. I am 26, and my girlfriend is 22. We are going to call her B. Because we like bees. B and I have been friends for many years, but we have only been dating for a little over a year. I have children from a previously failed marriage. They visit on the weekends. After the divorce I moved back in with my parents to restart, and get back on my feet. I no longer live there, but I found this information relevant as it is where most of the story takes place. I often travel for my job, and this is also relevant, but not until much later in the story. B sees things. She also hears things. She has described many horrifying visions and sounds. I knew that she experienced this, and while I have also had my own experiences I have never experienced anything like what she describes. I have never judged her for what she describes, and I have always kept an open mind. I believe in the paranormal, but I also believe in people needing psychiatric help. I have always thought that B's experiences are one or the other, but as for which one has always been irrelevant to me. I am here for her, and when the time comes that things reach a boil, then I will continue to be there for her. It did not take long after we started dating for me to also share some of her experiences. They started off very simple, and easy to brush off. Not feeling right in certain parts of the house, feeling watched, seeing a shadow thing in my vision. These are the kinds of things that we naturally write off as tricks of the imagination, stress, or what have you. Even though we both see it at the same time. She says that the things she usually sees are not of great detail. If she was to observe them she would never be able to make out details, nor make sense of words that she hears. No facial details, clothing details, anything of that nature. I don't know if this just means that they are pure black, or if they are more of a blur. She says there are two exceptions. Two things that she has seen repeatedly throughout her life, and they are the only two things that she's ever been able to make details out of. Tub man, and nose guy. I believe it is best to not give them names, but this is what she calls them. Tub man she has seen in several houses. Her childhood home, our friend's house, and others. She describes him as being skinny and lanky, and wearing red shoes. She has never seen his top half too well, or his face. Because whenever she sees him he's already halfway in the tub. That's it. She'll see him crawling from the floor into the tub as if he was a spider, and she always catches those red shoes of his. I want to say she said he's in normal clothes, but I can't say for certain. The shoes are what stand out. Nose man on the other hand, she has only seen in her childhood home. And he's not so much a man, as he is a nose. I know this sounds silly, like some sort of Cronenberg monster. A giant fleshy nose man that just looks at her, and watches her. If he even has eyes, I'm not sure. Now I know this may not seem relevant, but trust me, I have tried to leave out any details that I find irrelevant. I'm now going to delve into our experiences together. When you enter my parents' house there is the living room immediately in front, the kitchen to your left through the passageway with the pantry and garage door, and stairs to your right. So left, kitchen. Front, living room. Right, stairs. Stairs going up, and stairs going down. Upstairs is my sister's room, and my parents' room. Downstairs is another small living space, a bathroom, and what became mine and B's room. Unicorn, December 23, 1:59 a.m. I'm going to mostly skip over all of the smaller experiences of us not feeling right in that smaller living space downstairs. To be brief, until we had moved in it had went mostly unused, and shortly after we had moved in I had realized I did not like one particular corner of the room. Neither did B. There were a lot of times where we would find the lights on in closets downstairs when nobody was home, or in the middle of the night. Sometimes when we would pass by to go to the bedroom we would feel like something was rushing at us. The first real experience for both of us that I can remember that really had us freaked out was while she was using the bathroom. I was in the bedroom, which is directly next to the bathroom, lying in bed on my phone. It was about midday, and she had come back into the bedroom and asked what I wanted. I was not sure what she meant, and had asked her to explain. She had said I was knocking on the bathroom door, and was asking to come in. She had said it was locked, and she had asked me to wait. I had assured her that it was definitely not me, and that I would have heard someone knocking at the door. She seemed a bit frazzled, and had assured me that it was definitely my voice. Jump to us both showering one day. We had wrapped up, and gotten dressed in the bathroom. She went to leave, and said something is holding the door shut. I was in disbelief, so I came over and turned the handle firmly but slowly, and opened the door. It barely had cracked open before, and I swear on my life, the handle very firmly twisted the other way in my fucking hand and had pulled shut. I immediately swung the door open and rushed out of the bathroom to confront whoever was there, but of course, there was nobody there. This is almost a year ago now, but if I'm trying to keep a chronological order, I believe this is what happened next. I was off at work, and she was still in bed. She had heard my computer chair creaking multiple times. She felt someone was in the room, and had pulled the blanket up over her head a bit and taken a peek. She later described to me a pale and gaunt woman sitting in my chair, smiling, and staring at her. I do not remember if she said there was something unnatural about her smile, but I believe it seemed like a large smile. Also, she had eyes. Not blank, not black. I do not recall what color her hair or eyes were, as I am colorblind and that detail did not stick with me. My ears work, my eyes don't, but regardless I don't remember. Though, if I recall, her hair was not black, and it was a lighter color such as blonde or a soft brown. Long and thin. I wish I had asked more about this woman, such as what she was wearing, or any descriptive features. B seemed very stressed out about this incident, so I did not push for any more details. The reason this stressed her out so bad was because she could see the woman. It wasn't like all the other times. She was like Nose Guy and Tub Man. She could see every detail of her. She turned back over, pretended to sleep, and waited for me to get home. I did not see her. Unicorn, December 23, 1:59 a.m. Before COVID had gotten too bad, and us being ignorant of how bad it was going to be, we had taken a trip to Michigan. The whole family, except for my sister. She had stayed behind and watched the house, and fed the animals. We were gone for the week, and B and I had gotten home the following weekend before my parents. It was already late at night. We were unpacking the car, and she had ran inside. I kept unpacking, but was suddenly overwhelmed with the sickening feeling of being watched. It was worse than any time before. And for some reason I kept looking to the side to the house that led around to the back of the house. I eventually had grabbed some luggage, and rushed inside. I had gotten inside, and closed the front door. Immediately my attention was drawn to the window in the back. I couldn't see anything there, but it felt like something was looking right back at me. Just out of sight in the darkness. And then I had noticed, to my right, one of our cats was also sitting and just staring at the window. I tried snapping my fingers, and saying her name. She didn't even flick her little ears. She just stared. B had come back upstairs, and we went outside to grab some more luggage. I had mentioned to her that I felt like I was being watched. I had not mentioned the window, but then she immediately jumped in and said she felt like someone was watching her from the back window. We hurriedly got everything inside, and talked to my sister. We asked her how the week was, and she said everything was fine. We noticed that she was in her room, and while that makes perfect sense for any teenage girl to be sitting in her room, it isn't like her. She always sits in the living room, surrounded by all the animals, and watches YouTube videos on the TV. We asked her if anything seemed strange while we were gone, but we were very vague. She too had filled in the blanks, even pointing to that same window. She said she had not left her room any more than she possibly had to in the last few days because suddenly she felt like she was being watched from that window. We eventually grabbed flashlights and investigated the backyard. Obviously to no avail. So we moved on. The next event seems strange to note, but just like everything else, bear with me. There's a reason I'm taking note of it. While I was staying with my parents, I unfortunately didn't have a bed for both of the children. They both slept on the same bed. Really, it was a pull-out mattress from the sofa, in the downstairs living space. Yeah, it's not an amazing setup, but I was trying to do what I could to just see my girls. I would set them up at night in that bed and give them each one of their favorite stuffed animals, and I'd let them watch TV with almost no volume just to help them fall asleep. I'm aware that I really shouldn't let them have the TV on when they're sleeping, but I sympathize with the idea of being scared of the dark. As an adult, I still sleep with the TV on. Or rather at least some noise like a fan, music, or some kind of light. I don't like tea or dark on top of pure silence. Maybe I'm a scaredy cat, but the point is I let the girls keep the TV on. Okay, maybe some of that detail is unnecessary, but it's my story to tell. My youngest daughter is known to get up and seek out an adult. For no real reason, other than probably comfort. She doesn't come crying, scared, or anything of that nature. She just kind of gets up, finds an adult, and is like, "Hey, can I hang out here too?" But not in so many words. To which, you usually just have to tell her it's bedtime, and to go lie down. She'll go right back to bed. It's just something she does. Unicorn, December 23, 1:59 a.m. So one night we had noticed that more than usual she did not seem to want to stay in bed. Usually, she'll just knock on the door, and I'll send her back to bed. And this happened a couple of times. But the only time she would go upstairs was if she heard someone else, such as my dad. So on this night, with her continuing to get out of bed, we wanted to know if there was a particular reason. So we had our lights off, and we had cracked the door. We were keeping an eye on her, and after a short period, we seen her get up again. We didn't hear anything, or see anything that would have made her get up and check if someone was there. But she walked over to the bottom of the stairs, and just stared up the stairs. For a really uncomfortable amount of time. We watched her, unsure what to do. Obviously, we knew we needed to put her back down, but I think we were just curious if she was just going to turn around and knock on the door again, or go lie back down herself. There is, and I need to stress this, almost no lights upstairs. I mean, you can't really see anything. Everyone is asleep. There's not a single sound. The only glow of light is not from the middle floor, but the upstairs hallway. She starts climbing the stairs. It's a short set of stairs, but she's climbing. She reaches the top, and B and I slowly open the door, and come out. As quietly as we possibly could, we climbed the stairs after her. She had went through the small passageway in between the pantry and the garage into the kitchen. And she's just fucking standing there. In the dark. We can barely see her. She's standing in the middle of the kitchen, and staring into the blackness towards the corner of the kitchen by the window above the sink. Take note of the window above the sink. After an uncomfortable amount of time we say her name, and she jolts a bit, turns around, says hi and comes up and gives me a hug. We asked her if something's wrong, and what she's doing. She quite literally shrugs her little shoulders, points to the kitchen window area, and then puts her head on me. So we take her downstairs, put her to bed, and we don't sleep right away until the uneasy feeling passes. Again, trying to keep things chronological. The next incident I can think of happened in the middle of the day while my girls were visiting. My girls are very young, but I'm not going to disclose their ages. I will say one of them is young enough to not quite make coherent sentences, but she does love to talk. The older of the two is no longer a toddler. She's a kid, and before I know it, she'll be a teenager. My dad, B, and I were outside putting together a swing set for my kids. which if you've ever put one together then you know that it's not as fun as using the swing set. It's actually quite a hassle. And it was taking a lot more time than we had thought it was going to. Admittedly, I don't recall where my mother or my sister were, but I do recall that they were not there. So we had set the children up at the kitchen table with some kinetic sand and Legos. Figured that could be some good messy fun for us to clean up after building the swing set. We would work on the swing set, and go in to check on the children from time to time. I should note that the children can see us from the window, and we could see them. The window was even open. B suddenly described feeling sick to me. Like something wasn't right. So I asked her to check on the children, and kept on with the swing set. She went in, and was immediately struck with an even worse feeling. She asked my oldest daughter where her sister was, and she said she went upstairs with Mama, my mother. My mom isn't fucking home. Even writing that out made me feel nauseous. Probably because my children are involved. Unicorn, December 23, 1:59 a.m. B ran upstairs, and she described feeling a weird sensation. As she describes it, when she was talking to my daughter she couldn't hear anything else. But as she reached the top of the stairs she could very clearly hear my younger daughter screaming and crying that she wanted out. She tried the door, and it was locked. She ran downstairs to get a butter knife, and rushed back up. Unlocked it, went inside, and she had to unlock my parents' bathroom door as well. She got her out, and held her. She said she had dried tears on her face, but she couldn't have been gone that long. We were constantly keeping an eye on them through the window even as we worked on the swing set. And B said she could hear her yelling the whole time all of a sudden after she reached the top of the stairs. All the way back in the kitchen she could hear her. Why couldn't she before, and why hadn't my older daughter heard her the whole time? Not to mention she knows how to lock and unlock doors, so how did she end up in that situation in the first place? Did she just start to panic, and couldn't get the door unlocked? I still think about my daughter saying she went upstairs with Mama. I feel like something is luring my daughter, and the idea of that woman that be seen makes me feel fucking sick. I just thought of a detail that's kind of important for later. My parents have a master bedroom, of course. They have their own bathroom attached, and then from the bathroom is how you enter their closet. It's a walk-in closet. It's a very strange setup since it's somewhat of a series of doors, and it's kind of bougie. But hey, it's not my house. Some time passes, and my brother and his wife visit. Everything goes as normal, and it's a good time. We play some Animal Crossing, and we all hang out. They're getting ready to leave, and somehow spooky stories are brought up. They were brought up by my brother's wife. Just fun stories. But we start telling them about some things that we've experienced in the house. They exchanged glances in an almost cartoon fashion. My brother's wife then asked us to go outside. I was puzzled, but we went outside. She then elaborated that she was afraid someone was in our house. And she did not want them to hear us. Like a squatter in our attic or something. They began sharing stories of how bothered they have been in the past at this house. These were all before we had moved in. Some of which I don't recall, and at the time I could not relate to. Some others were similar to our experiences in that the same closets, and the same rooms would have their lights on with the doors closed, and some doors would open or close when they weren't looking. 3 of the stories stood out to me and so I will briefly tell those. First, my brother was playing the new Star Wars game on his PS4 downstairs. His wife was upstairs. He had seen someone in the corner of his eye walk down the stairs, and go in the bathroom and close the door. They had turned the light on as well, but after they closed the door, he had assumed it was his wife. His wife was still upstairs, and when he had realized that she had opened the bathroom door, and nobody was in it. This is bothersome because it is the same bathroom where B had heard my voice when I wasn't there, and where something had turned the handle and closed the door when B and I were trying to open the door. Second, they were feeding the animals while the rest of the family was out of town. Again, we did not live there yet. So my parents and my sister were out of town. They were feeding both dogs and both cats all weekend long. Randomly, in the middle of the week they could no longer find one of the cats. They had searched all over the house. Finally, they had gone upstairs and checked my parents' room. They had run out of options, but they had not checked it previously because they had no reason over the whole weekend to go into my parents' room. The cat was not in my parents' room. Nor was it in the bathroom. It was in the fucking closet. Unicorn, December 23, 1:59 a.m. You remember that setup I mentioned earlier? How does a cat go through 3 doors and get stuck in the closet when nobody is home? The situation bothered me because it reminded me of what happened with my younger daughter. It's also a good time to note that we constantly find the cats in the closets. Sometimes we don't even let them out. For example, when everyone in the house is sleeping, but her and we play hella games all night, we would go to the mid-level to get food, hear a door click open, look upstairs and see the male cat walk out of the towel closet very nonchalantly. This has happened 3 different times. Nobody let him out. The door just opens, and he walks out. Third story from my brother and his wife, and this one is kind of simple. They were house sitting again as they often did for my parents. My brother was staying up playing games on his laptop, and he had went outside to smoke. He was sitting on the bench outside, and this bench is right outside of the kitchen, towards the back of the house. He had been there for some time, and the light from the kitchen window was shining across the ground. He said a woman had walked into the window, and she was just standing there in the window. He said it scared him because he knew it was not his wife. The silhouette did not look like her, and he knew she was asleep. When he finally mustered up the courage to stand up and take a look in the window, there was nobody there. The shadow was gone. When he had went back inside, he had confirmed that his wife had been sleeping the whole time. The reason the story bothers me as well is because that window would be the window where my daughter was staring in the middle of the dark of the kitchen that night. One experience my sister was a part of was when I was on my way to work. I got a text from B. She was still in bed, but all it said was, "Something is in the room," and a follow-up message about things getting knocked over, and she's too scared to get out of bed. It's like 5:30 a.m., and still dark. I knew my sister would be up that early because, well, she's unhealthy. Much like us. So I called her, and asked her to go check on B. She went downstairs, and turned the light on. When she did, she seen that my fan was knocked over, and all the stuff on my dresser was knocked over as well. This is all on the opposite side of the room where B is in bed. So they fixed everything, and kept the lights on until the sun came up. There are only 2 more stories before we are caught up with the present moment. Both of these stories are the most recent, and they have both happened in the past 30 days. But they both concerned me, because they both tie all the events together, but also make them all much harder to understand. As I have said before, I travel for work. Especially right now, as the area of Indiana that I'm in is considered a red zone for COVID. So all the local work has pretty much shut down. So about a month ago we were on our way to a job in Georgia. There's not much to really set up for what happened because it happened very suddenly. We've been driving for many hours already, but we weren't overly tired or anything. We always stop for naps in the car, or anything like that if we think we're getting too tired on a long road trip. We've been driving on the highway for most of the trip, but as we're getting close to the destination, the GPS had taken us off onto some local roads for the rest of the trip. Which we found odd because I didn't think Albany was that off the beaten path. We had gotten onto a decent stretch of road in the backwoods of Georgia on our way to Albany, but we still had a ways to go. We both had started to feel a little off about the road we were on. Nothing too specific, but just that feeling that creeps up on you, you know? Realizing that I could always turn on my brights since I'm no longer on the highway, and maybe it would help us feel a little better to be able to see more of what's around us, I decided that was what I would do. Unicorn, December 23, 1:59 a.m. No sooner than had I turned on my lights, I could see something on the side of the road. It was coming out of the woods, and towards the road. I could not make out what it was, and then we were passing it. As we had gotten closer and I was able to distinguish it more, I can only describe it as a gray, even from my eyes being somewhat colorblind, human-sized, fleshy, shaking thing. Not shaking like a bag blowing in the wind, or fabric caught on a tree. Besides, I had clearly watched it come from inside the woods. It was shaking like it was having a convulsion. You ever see the Silent Hill movie? Remember that thing on the road that attacks the cop lady? Like a person gift-wrapped in their own skin? Like that, but less person and more shaky. Same color though. I instantly asked if she had seen what I had just seen, and she was thoroughly freaked out, and described exactly what I had seen. She said it looked like it was the same fleshy material that Nose Guy always was. Now, this part is strange to me because it's a bit of a departure from everything else we've experienced. It seems entirely unrelated to everything else besides her relation to Nose Guy, but it's important to me because it's the first unexplainable thing I've ever seen for myself. Every story until now has happened around me. I have felt them, everyone's stories keep matching up, and I did feel something close the door. But this was the first thing I seen with my own eyes. My dumb ass needed closure, so I actually turned the car around to go check what it was. There wasn't anything there. No semi-truck tarp caught on a tree, no amalgamation of small garbage bags creating a larger scarier garbage bag, and no spooky Silent Hill monster. I was a bit shaken though. Now this is the last, and most recent story. I'm currently in Bosco, Washington. Another job. It was, altogether with naps and food stops, over a 2-day drive. We made the usual rest stops off the toll road at those designated rest areas. Everything was totally normal, but at one of the rest areas we had split and went in our own respective rest rooms. Myself to the men's, and her to the ladies' room. I had gotten out before her, and was checking out the snack machines. Which Wisconsin? Why do you have cheese curds and pickles in your snack machines? Anyway, when she came out, I had taken note that she came out of the ladies' room on the opposite side of the rest area. I didn't think too much of it, but I did notice it. She seemed off, but we kept moving on. Thinking back, I should have asked her if she was alright. Rest areas can be shitty. So we drove for another day, and we were about 6 hours away from our destination. I remember looking at the woods next to us, and remembering the thing we had seen in Georgia. I got thinking about everything, and I had asked her if it was relieving that I had seen it as well. My logic here is that she's always questioned herself, and the things she sees. Since she's the only one that has seen them. I think that's natural. She said that it's relieving that I seen it, but it also terrifies her because it makes her wonder if everything else is in her head or if they're all real. She said if they're all real then she doesn't want to be alive anymore. Which is super heavy, but I don't blame her. If she's seen things like what I had her whole life, then I don't know if I'd want to continue either. So I got thinking about everything again, and I asked her out of nowhere if she thought that woman she saw was what lured my daughter upstairs. She started panicking. I mean, scared for her life. She started crying, and telling me no, don't talk about her. She was so afraid. She started looking in the back of the car to make sure she wasn't in the car. This idea, and her panic, terrified me too, of course. Unicorn, December 23, 1:59 a.m. She told me through her tears that the previous day at that rest area when she had went into the first women's room, that when she went around the corner and looked in that she was there. She slowly lifted her head above the wall of the stall, and looked right at her. I assume with that same smile she told me about before, but I can't say for certain. I didn't want to ask. I just tried to calm her down. She didn't want me to talk about her, or bring her up. She thought that even the fact that I had thought about her and mentioned her wasn't a coincidence. I reassured her that it was, but it made me question it as well. We haven't spoken about that in so long that it is pretty coincidental. The reason it terrified her so much was because this is the second time she's seen her. Holy tub man, and knows guy have ever been repeating. Now she is too. The idea that something like that could follow us out of state scared me more than anything. That's really all I've got. I've spent pretty much all day typing this up, and trying to make it coherent. I don't know if anyone is really going to get through all of this, but I'm kind of desperate. I need to know if anyone has had similar experiences, if anyone knows anything about this, if we need a medium, or if we both need psychiatric help. I don't know what to do. There are so many little details, and bits and pieces that I've probably missed. I've done the best I could to try and explain everything I found important. I hope I haven't forgotten anything too big. Thank you for reading if you've made it this far. Also, unrelated, but if anyone is concerned about how much we travel during these times, we very much keep to ourselves. We distance from everyone at stops, keep to ourselves at home, and my work is on oil tanks. The only people I run into are on my crew,